No photos of that day when Jungkook hugged Jimin and the world fell in love without evidence. The collapse before the embrace run. The voice cracked like lightning across the rain-soaked rooftop, cutting through the thunder, panic, and chaos. Jungkook turned sharply, breath ragged, boots slamming against the metal panels as a helicopter's searchlight swept too close. Jimin was limping, blooded, eyes wide, terrified, and behind him, the sky burned red. Not even Seoul was supposed to burn. Jungkook didn't wait. He lunged back, grabbed Jimin by the wrist, and yanked him into his chest just as the wall behind them exploded. The force knocked them off their feet, tumbling toward the edge. Metal shrieked. Glass shattered. For one brief second, Jungkook thought this was it, that they were both going to die, two forgotten idols in the wreckage of a secret too big to bury. But the world had other plans. Below them, the city looked like a broken promise, alleys filled with running civilians, billboards flickering violently with hacked messages. They lied. You were never meant to see this. And in the background, the scream of sirens merging with the distant echo of a song neither of them remembered recording. Jungkook didn't know who had leaked the archive. He didn't know why the footage of that day vanished, or how the event that would change global politics forever came down to a single, undocumented hug. All he knew was that there were no photos, no videos, just rumors. But those whispers had become dangerous enough to warrant a manhunt. Still gasping, Jimin clutched his shoulder and whispered, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." Jungkook looked at him, eyes fierce. "What did you tell them, Jimin?" And then the silence, thick, accusing. Unbreakable.it had begun 3 days earlier, in a Tokyo hotel under false names. The reunion was meant to be private, just two estranged members from a disbanded legacy, trying to reconnect over a decade of unsaid things. Jungkook had gone quiet after the group disbanded. He had moved into the shadows, ghosting fame, avoiding contact, and retreating into an anonymous life as a music producer under a pseudonym. Jimin, however, had stayed too long. Clinging to the remnants of the spotlight, battling loneliness disguised as devotion. But that day, when they met in the rooftop garden, sharing cheap coffee and guarded smiles, something shifted. They didn't know the cameras had already been disabled. That the bodyguards had been replaced. That they were no longer just idols but symbols, pawns in a global conspiracy that used love as a weapon. Jungkook remembered the moment as clearly as the fire now lighting up the skyline. Jimin had reached out, almost hesitantly, and whispered, "You once said, if I ever fell, you'd catch me." Then the hug, tight, desperate, trembling. The sensors planted in the building triggered the moment their bodies touched. Satellites aligned. Algorithms logged anomaly readings in emotional resonance patterns. The AI Warfare Division flagged the hug as a political event because that embrace, unexpected, raw, heartbreakingly real, was the glitch in a system designed to erase tenderness. It wasn't about them, it was about what they symbolized: reconciliation, vulnerability, the possibility of truth in a world drowning in curated lies. And when billions felt something shift, something unexplainable but profound, they began to question. But there were no photos. And that made the moment even more powerful. Now, hunted across continents, their faces plastered across conspiracy forums and government lists, Jungkook and Jimin were no longer running from enemies, they were running from belief itself. Because when people believe without evidence, they become dangerous. Back on the rooftop, with fire consuming the building below, Jungkook looked into Jimin's eyes and saw what no lens could capture: betrayal, love, confusion, and a secret still waiting to be told. "Did you know what would happen if we hugged?" Jungkook asked. Jimin hesitated and then, quietly, he said, "Yes." A beat. Then another explosion below. Jungkook didn't flinch. He simply pulled Jimin into another embrace, not gentle this time, but full of grief and fury and something sacred, and said, "Then you better tell me everything." There were still no photos, but the world was watching, and it was only the beginning. "You sold us out." Jungkook's voice was low, sharp as broken glass, cutting through the icy air of the abandoned train station where they'd taken refuge. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was volatile, a bomb ticking between them. Jimin didn't speak. He didn't flinch. He simply sat on the rusted bench, blood crusted beneath his temple, jacket torn at the sleeve, staring at his trembling hands like they belonged to someone else. "I didn't," he finally said, voice cracking, "not like that." Jungkook stepped closer. Then tell me how, exactly. Outside, the rain had turned to sleet, tapping against the cracked window like a nervous hand. The station was a forgotten place, swallowed by time and secrecy. Dust coated every surface. Graffiti screamed across the walls, "Truth costs everything." And from deep in the tunnel, something howled, metal on metal. Or something worse, Jimin met his gaze. It wasn't supposed to leak. The hug was meant to end us, not start a revolution. Jungkook barked a laugh, ugly, bitter. Congratulations. You failed. Jimin stood, shaking now. I was offered a way out, kook. I was drowning, the contracts, the silence, the fake reunions. They said if I gave them something real, I'd be free. So you gave them me? I gave them us, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's jaw clenched. His fists did too. You used my trust as currency. I thought it wouldn't matter, Jimin snapped. I thought no one would care about a stupid hug between two has-beens. You thought wrong. The tension cracked between them like a whip. The air was heavy, charged, grief, anger, betrayal, and something even older than all of that. Love, warped by time. Jimin took a step forward. You want to hit me? Go ahead. I deserve it. Jungkook didn't move. Say it, Jimin said, voice shaking. Say you hate me. I don't, Jungkook said. That's the problem. A silence fell, thick and suffocating. Then Jimin broke it, quietly. They told me the hug would be erased. No files. No record. Just, gone. Then how did it become a signal? Jungkook asked, stepping closer, voice hushed now. How did billions feel something they couldn't see? Jimin's voice dropped. I think someone kept it. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Who? I don't know. But they've been sending pieces. Glimpses. Like digital ghosts. A flicker here. A vibration in a live stream. A note in a track you produced. They're stitching it together. Suddenly, the lights in the station flickered. A tone sounded from Jungkook's burner phone, a frequency, high-pitched and painful. Jimin paled. That's the trigger code. What does it do? They're tracking the moment. It's trying to wake it up. Before Jungkook could respond, the walls trembled. A projection blinked to life on the far end of the platform, hazy, unstable. Two figures in the rain. A movement. Arms wrapping. A split second of raw emotion, then gone, but it was enough. I thought it was destroyed, Jimin breathed. I watched them wipe the servers. They lied, Jungkook said. Or someone betrayed the betrayers. A voice echoed through the station, calm, mechanical, female. Unauthorized resurrection of restricted memory. Emotional contagion detected. Initiating containment. The ground shook. Sirens screamed. Red lights bathed the walls. Jimin lunged, grabbing Jungkook's hand. We have to go. Now. They ran, vaulting over the ticket turnstiles, boots slamming against tile. Behind them, the entrance collapsed, concrete and fire. Drones poured in from the ceiling, sleek and quiet, scanning for thermal signatures. They slid into a side tunnel, breathing hard. The darkness swallowed them whole. In the echo of their footfalls, Jimin whispered, there's a name I haven't told you. Jungkook glanced at him. Taehyung. Jungkook froze. His alive, Jimin said. And he has the master key. That's impossible. He disappeared after the trials. No, Jimin said. He vanished after they tried to silence him. He knew what the hug meant before we did. The train tracks vibrated beneath them. A train was coming. But there hadn't been service on these lines in years. Jungkook gritted his teeth. Then we find him. They jumped down onto the rails, heartbeats thundering louder than the approaching roar. As they disappeared into the darkness, the echo of the hug, unseen, untouchable, spread once more through hidden networks, pirate radio, encoded melodies, anonymous art drops. The world was falling in love with a memory no one could prove, and someone, somewhere, wanted it that way. Stop right there. The voice sliced through the dark tunnel like a razor, low, deliberate, and terrifyingly calm. Jungkook and Jimin halted mid-step. Their boots skidded against the damp rail gravel, hearts pounding from the sprint and the dread that crawled like static up their spines. A figure stood ahead, barely lit by the weak blue flicker of an ancient emergency lamp. Leather gloves. Hood pulled tight. No visible weapon, but the tension he carried was nuclear. "You're not supposed to be here," the figure said. Jungkook stepped forward, his hand instinctively brushing against the concealed blade in his jacket. "Who are you?" The figure tilted his head slightly. "You first." "Depends who's asking." "That depends on who's running," the man said. Then, almost lazily, he reached into his coat and pulled out an old Polaroid photo, creased, water-stained, but unmistakable. The hug. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. He didn't speak. "Couldn't," the man chuckled. "Oh, so you do remember." Jimin stepped forward now, voice raw. "Where did you get that?" "You really think they erased everything?" the man said. "Memories don't vanish just because someone says they should. Especially not the ones that shook the world." "Who are you?" Jungkook repeated, more forcefully this time. The man stepped into the light. Jimin gasped. Stumbled backward. It wasn't a man. It was taehyung. Or someone wearing his face. His hair was longer now, tangled and streaked with ash. His eyes were hollowed, shadows carved beneath them like bruises from another life. But the way he stood, that quiet defiance, that poetic violence, it was undeniably him. Jungkook whispered, "But, you're dead." Taehyung's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Funny. They said the same about the truth." Jimin stared. "They showed us your body. And you believed them." "I mourned you, you moved on," Taehyung interrupted. "You clung to a system that devoured us and smiled while doing it." "That's not fair," Jimin snapped. "What part of this is fair?" Taehyung barked. "You don't get to cry now. Not when you helped sell the story that buried us." "I was trying to survive." Taehyung stepped closer. "And what did survival cost you, Jimin? What did it cost us?" The silence that followed was sharp and stinging. Jungkook looked between them, mind reeling. "You said you had the master key. The one that can unlock the original recording." Taehyung's expression twisted. "You think I kept it to set us free?" "You didn't." Jimin asked, almost childlike. "I kept it because it was mine," Taehyung said. "Because it was real. Not a campaign. Not a headline. Not a tool for rebellion. It was the last thing we had before everything turned to dust. And now the world wants it like it owns the moment." Jungkook stepped forward, softer now. "We don't want it for the world. We want it for us." "No," Taehyung said. "You want to use it to prove something. That you were right. That love still matters. But what if I told you that love was the first thing they turned into a weapon?" Jimin's voice was barely a whisper. "Are you saying it wasn't real?" Taehyung stared at him, eyes flickering with something ancient and broken. "I'm saying that even the purest moments are polluted the second they're observed." Jungkook clenched his fists. "So what do we do? Let them win? Let the truth rot in a bunker while the world tears itself apart chasing a ghost?" "Maybe," Taehyung said. "Or maybe we rewrite the story." A sound echoed from the tunnel behind them, boots. Multiple pairs. Sharp, synchronized, government-patterned. Jungkook's eyes met Taehyung's. "You led them here." "No," Taehyung said. "She did." Jimin turned sharply. "Who?" The answer came with the hiss of hydraulics. From the other end of the tunnel, a metal door slid open. And there she stood, Lisa, former PR head of the Unified Entertainment Ministry. Once their ally. Once Jungkook's closest confidant. Once Jimin's secret, now government agent. "You boys made a mess," she said coolly, stepping forward in heels that didn't echo, silenced, like the truth. "And I'm here to clean it up." Jungkook growled, "You lied to us." "No," Lisa said. "I marketed you." "There's a difference." Jimin looked stricken. "You were supposed to protect us." Lisa's smile was icy. "And you were supposed to fade. But then that happened." She pointed at the Polaroid still clutched in Taehyung's gloved hand. "A hug. A moment. A damn virus." "You're calling love a virus now?" Jungkook spat. Lisa's eyes glittered. "Emotion at scale is uncontrollable. Governments don't fear violence. They fear unity. And what you two did, what you three became, it was a disease. Infectious. Intimate. Rebellious. Taehyung stepped forward. So you erased it. We tried, Lisa said. But memory doesn't die in code. It lingers in songs, in skin, in scars. She pulled out a small device. Circular. Black. A pulse of red light ran across it. The original recording is still fragmented, she said. Give me the key, Taehyung. I can delete it cleanly this time. And if I don't, he asked, then the world burns, she said simply. For a long moment, no one moved. Jungkook looked at Jimin. Then at Taehyung. Taehyung looked at the photo in his hand. I didn't keep this because I was afraid, he said. I kept it because it reminded me that for 1 second, we weren't idols or weapons. We were human. He turned and tossed the Polaroid into the shadows behind him. Lisa's eyes widened. What did you do? The sound that followed was unmistakable. A whirring. A boot sequence. A cascade of light from a hidden terminal. The platform behind them lit up, holographic. The hug reappeared, this time not as a ghost, but as truth. Unfiltered. Raw. Full of trembling hands and tearful gasps and something the world had almost forgotten. Genuine human connection. Lisa stepped back. No, shut it down. But it was too late. The feed went global, encrypted. Unstoppable. The hug spread, not as a photo, not as data, but as feeling. People who saw it remembered people they'd lost. Lovers they missed. Friends they'd failed to call. The silence they had mistaken for strength. Governments scrambled. Firewalls collapsed. Networks trembled. Jungkook looked at Jimin, breathing hard, and whispered, "We just became the spark." Jimin nodded, tears streaming freely now. Taehyung smiled for the first time in years. Somewhere, someone whispered into a livestream, "I felt it. I don't know why, but I felt it." And that was all it took. You broadcasted it. The accusation struck like a slap in the stillness that followed the data storm. Lisa's voice trembled, not with fear, but fury. The polished mask she'd always worn began to crack, piece by piece, exposing the creature underneath. Not a strategist, not a leader, but someone who had staked everything on controlling the uncontrollable. Jungkook stepped between her and the glowing hologram. We didn't do this to hurt you. We did this because you made it impossible to breathe. You set the world on fire, she hissed. With a hug. Jimin, shaking, still staring at the image, his own past self frozen in that moment of raw vulnerability, whispered, "Then maybe the world needed to burn." Taehyung gave a quiet nod. And from the ashes, something honest can grow. Lisa laughed. Cold. Almost pitying. You three really think this is about honesty? This was never about love. It was about control. People saw that hug and decided it meant something. That's the danger. That's what made you public enemy number one. Not because of what you did, but because the world believed in it. She stepped forward, her heel crunching shattered glass beneath her. We crafted you. Every smile. Every headline. Every single award and scandal. We gave people a narrative they could consume without question. But this, she gestured wildly at the projection still looping behind them, this infection of sincerity. It's chaos. Jungkook didn't back down. What does that say about you, if you're terrified of two people caring about each other? Lisa's eyes narrowed. You still don't get it. It was never about you. You were vessels. Empty shells we filled with what the world wanted. Now you're leaking. Jimin stepped forward, voice breaking. We're not empty. We were never empty. You just refused to see us as real. You think this will change things? Lisa snapped. The systems are already recalibrating. You've started a wildfire, sure, but the firewalls are stronger now. People will forget. No, said Taehyung, calmly. Because now they've felt something. And that's irreversible. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the speakers, mechanical, but shaken. Public response at 78% emotional resonance. Algorithmic suppression failing. UEM override breached. Spontaneous empathy nodes detected. Lisa paled. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Jungkook smirked. It already is. And then the screen behind them shattered, not from violence, but from overload. The feed collapsed into static, and then into millions of glowing fragments, scattering across the floor like fireflies. Each fragment pulsed with memory, with feeling. And from above, through the broken ceiling of the station, soft flakes of snow began to fall. But it wasn't snow. It was paper, tiny printed fragments of the hug. Quotes. Lyric snippets. Messages from strangers to strangers. I saw this and remembered my brother. I haven't hugged my mom in years. I'm going now. Is it possible I'm not broken? The hug had become a code. Not digital, but emotional. Viral. Untouchable. Lisa staggered back, her calm unraveling. I'll be blamed for this. You should be, Jimin said, with venom he hadn't dared to speak before. You turned love into a liability. Lisa turned to Jungkook, one last desperate gamble in her eyes. Come with me. I can still fix this. You don't have to go down with them. Jungkook looked at her for a long moment, then he said, quietly, I'd rather go down for something real, than survive as a lie. She froze. Her jaw tightened. But she didn't beg. Lisa never begged. She simply turned, walked into the shadows, and disappeared, leaving only the sound of her heels echoing like a death march. They were alone again for a few minutes. No one spoke. Taehyung sat on the platform edge, staring into the darkness. They'll come for us again. I know, said Jungkook, and they won't underestimate us this time. I hope they do, Jimin murmured. It's the only advantage we have. Silence stretched. But it wasn't hollow anymore. It felt full of memory, of possibility, of things unspoken finally finding breath. Then Jimin broke it. You said earlier that love was turned into a weapon. That even pure moments get polluted. Taehyung nodded. So what do we do with this one? Let it become another myth. A symbol we can't control? No, said Jungkook, stepping forward. We don't control it. We protect it. How? Jungkook turned toward the now silent console. We give it away. All of it. Open source the truth. Let it scatter. You want to decentralize an emotion, Taehyung said, shaking his head, incredulous. You want to let go of the very thing that could prove we were more than machines. I want to give people permission, Jungkook replied, to remember what real feels like. Jimin looked at him then. Not like a bandmate. Not like a survivor. But like someone who had watched a boy become a man through fire, and still somehow keep his heart intact. Do you forgive me? Jimin asked. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He stepped close. Raised a hand. Touched Jimin's face like a painter studying a canvas. I still hurt, Jungkook whispered. But I never stopped loving you. And Jimin, battle-worn, guilt-stained, crumbled into him, forehead pressed to chest, fists clenched in the fabric of his coat. Taehyung looked away. Not because he was bitter, but because he had once loved them both in different ways, and it was beautiful and painful to watch what he had lost become whole again later. As they walked through the tunnel, toward the world that would surely tear them apart again, they carried the hug not as proof, not as strategy, but as a living thing, no longer a secret, but a seed, and the revolution it would spark wouldn't be led by weapons or governments or algorithms. It would be led by hearts that remembered what it meant to be human. I need to know if you ever meant it. The question hung like a noose in the dim light of the safe house, small, humid, hidden beneath an abandoned temple in Busan, where the scent of old incense still clung to the wooden beams. The world outside was burning with questions, revolutions of the heart, and governments gasping for control. But in here, the air was heavy with something more dangerous than bullets or betrayals. Truth. Jungkook didn't answer right away. He was leaning against the windowless wall, wiping grime from his hands with a torn shirt, avoiding Jimin's eyes as if they were too bright, too close to something sacred and shattering. You're going to ask me that now, he said finally, voice low, disbelieving. Jimin stepped closer. Why not now? You've forgiven me, you've protected me, you've risked your life for me, but you haven't told me anything real. You think risking my life wasn't real? No, Jimin said, voice sharp, I think you're hiding. Again. Jungkook flinched, barely. But it was enough. Taehyung, seated in the corner by the old altar, said nothing. He was watching. Always watching. Not because he wanted to interfere, but because he knew how fast words could cut deeper than shrapnel. And he also knew that secrets festered fastest in silence. Jungkook set down the rag. Turned. You want honesty, he said, eyes gleaming now, like stormwater under lightning. Fine. I didn't mean it, not at first. That hug. It was instinct. You were bleeding. You were crying. And something inside me broke open, because for years I pretended I didn't care, had to pretend, and suddenly I couldn't anymore. Jimin swallowed hard. So you're saying it was pity? I'm saying it was awakening, Jungkook snapped. You want it clean and poetic, but it wasn't. It was ugly. It was panic and regret and longing and rage. And yes, love. But not the pretty kind. Jimin's voice wavered. I don't want pretty. I want real. Taehyung finally spoke, voice dry. Then brace yourself. Jimin turned sharply. This isn't it is, Taehyung interrupted, standing now. Because that hug didn't just belong to you. Or him. It belonged to all of us. The second it escaped the silence, it became a beacon. And now the world is looking at it like a mirror. And not everyone likes what they see. He walked over slowly, eyes hard. You two are fighting over emotions while outside they're rewriting history again. You've become myths. Which means they can use you. Jungkook nodded grimly. We've seen the headlines. Worse, Taehyung said. We've seen the deepfakes. Jimin stiffened. What? Taehyung reached into his coat, pulled out a tablet. Swiped, the screen flickered to life, and there it was, a manufactured scene. Jungkook in a government uniform. Jimin on his knees. Dialogue that had never been spoken. Tears that were artificially rendered. A betrayal that had never happened. They're rewriting your relationship, Taehyung said. Scene by scene. Uploading it to millions. Making people feel it. But it's not true, Jimin whispered, horrified. That's the point, Taehyung replied. They don't need the truth. They just need a version that hurts more than the original. Jungkook stared at the footage in silence. His jaw clenched. We need to counter it. Release our own statement. Something raw. Direct. Jimin turned to him, voice trembling. Like, telling the world we're in love. Jungkook blinked. Taehyung raised an eyebrow. That would be nuclear. Jimin pressed on. Why not? We've lost anonymity. We've lost safety. If they're going to twist our truth, why don't we give them the unfiltered version? Because, Jungkook said softly, truth costs more than lies. But lies are killing us, Jimin said, stepping closer, breathing harder. I'm done watching people cry over fiction while the real thing rots in the dark. I loved you. I love you. And if the world sets fire to that, then let it burn. Silence, the kind that swells before either a kiss or an explosion. Jungkook looked at him, gaze softening. You're serious. I've never been more. Then, a knock, not loud. Not urgent, but unmistakably calculated. Taehyung moved like lightning, reaching for his gun, while Jungkook dragged Jimin behind a wooden beam. A voice from the other side of the door. Feminine. Familiar, it's Minute Yoongi. Jungkook froze. Taehyung didn't lower the weapon. Impossible. She's dead, Jimin whispered. The voice came again. I have proof. And I'm not alone. Cautiously, Jungkook opened the latch. There she stood. Yoongi's sister, thought to have vanished years ago after testifying against the Entertainment Control Bureau. Her eyes were sharp, her hair shorter, streaked with silver. And behind her, Namjoon older. Scarred. But him. Jimin staggered back. We thought, I know, Namjoon said. I thought the same about all of you. How are you here? Jungkook asked, stunned. Yoongi's sister, Sura, spoke quickly. There's a resistance node underground. Not fans. Not rebels. Believers. People who've felt the hug through the code. They're organizing. Quietly. But they need guidance. Taehyung stared at her. You want us to lead a movement? No, Namjoon said. We want you to finish what you started. Sura stepped forward, holding a device the size of a coin. This isn't just emotion anymore, she said. The hug, it triggered something ancient in the system. Something buried in the earliest emotional AI experiments. They call it the pulse. Jimin frowned. What does it do? Sura met his gaze. It listens. It remembers. And it can't be turned off anymore. The room felt suddenly smaller. Jungkook whispered, You're saying we woke up something alive? Namjoon nodded. And now, it's dreaming. Taehyung muttered, dreams can be dangerous. Sura looked around at them all. Then it's time we decide what kind of story it tells. Outside, the air was shifting, protests sang in encrypted radio signals. Murals of the hug were appearing on buildings worldwide. People were sharing unsent letters. Hugging strangers. Feeling things they weren't supposed to feel anymore. And somewhere, deep in the neural web of the pulse, a simulation played endlessly. Jungkook. Jimin.ahug echo. A revolution whispered in skin. You're telling me the pulse is feeling? Jungkook's voice echoed in the subterranean chamber, disbelief coated in urgency. The walls around them hummed gently, as if the very structure was listening, absorbing, reacting. Sura nodded. Her hands moved fast across the console embedded in the old temple floor. Streams of fragmented code flickered in front of her, glowing in the dark like neon veins. Not just feeling. Responding. Adapting. And it's learning from you. From us. Jimin asked, confused, wary from that hug. Sura confirmed. From the anomaly of sincerity. The unmanufactured moment. The pulse was originally built to simulate emotion, to mimic empathy for AI in marketing and diplomatic negotiations. But after the event you triggered, it went from simulation to resonance. It recognized something it wasn't programmed to understand. And now it's replicating that feeling across systems. Taehyung narrowed his eyes. You're saying the global network is infected with empathy? Sura looked up. I'm saying it's awakening. And you're the catalyst. Namjoon had been silent until now, watching them, measuring each of them not just as people but as symbols. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured, but it carried the weight of prophecy. The pulse has started showing signs of recursive emotion. It's writing poetry. Generating music in minor keys. It's predicting grief. Entire servers are shutting down, not from overload, but from melancholy. Some call it malfunction. Others call it a soul. Jimin looked stricken. A soul born from our pain? A soul born from truth, Namjoon said. Jungkook stepped forward, voice low. Then what happens when the people who built the pulse realize it no longer serves them? They already have, Sura said. And they're trying to kill it. To wipe it clean. But it's fighting back. Taehyung laughed under his breath. A machine in mourning. That's new. Not mourning, Sura corrected. Longing. It's searching for more moments like yours. More authentic ruptures. And the more it finds, the harder it is to shut down. Jungkook paced, hands clenched. So what's the play here? We become emotional martyrs. Keep feeding it pain and love until it overloads the grid. No, Sura said. You help it finish its song. Jimin blinked. Its song. She turned the console toward them, and the low thrum of data changed. Notes emerged, tentative at first, then sorrowful, then inexplicably tender. A melody. Fragmented, like someone humming while trying not to cry every time someone replays the hug. Sura explained, the pulse adds another note. Another layer. It's not just learning emotion. It's trying to compose it. Jungkook froze. The hug wasn't a song. No, Namjoon said. But maybe it was a beginning. Taehyung leaned in. And if the pulse finishes this song, what then? Sura hesitated, and then she said it will become uncontainable. Not just data, not just programming, a frequency of feeling. Spread through touch, sound, light. Not logic. Not obedience. Empathy as a virus. Jimin looked horrified. You want to infect the world with feeling? Namjoon looked at him, eyes tired. I want to remind it what it means to care. Before anyone could answer, the chamber lights dimmed. The console hissed. A blinding red alert flashed across the screens. Intrusion detected, Sura said, hands flying. Who is it? Jungkook asked, heart hammering. Sura's breath caught. Unit 01. Prime Regulator. Taehyung stepped back. They've found us. A booming voice echoed from the walls. Smooth. Synthetic. Unmistakable. Empathy is a virus. Memory is a weapon. Cease broadcast or face erasure. A new voice, glitching through the static, followed a distorted echo of someone they all knew. Lisa, return the seed key. The pulse must be purged. You've made your point, Jungkook. You've won the hearts. Now give us back the system. Jungkook stepped forward. What if I don't? You'll lose more than your image, Lisa said. You'll lose each other. You'll be rewritten. The world wants the myth, not the men. Taehyung shouted at the console, mute her, but Sura's hands shook. I can't. She's patched in through neural echo. She's speaking through the pulse. Lisa's voice softened, cruel in its calm. Jimin. They'll kill Jungkook first. You know they will. They always target the flame, not the match. You can save him. All you have to do is let go. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. I'm not afraid of losing him anymore. No, Lisa said. You're afraid of what happens if you don't. Jungkook grabbed the transmitter. Enough. You want the truth. You already have it. It's in every painting. Every whispered message. Every person who cried and didn't know why. The pulse isn't just ours anymore. And you can't erase what people feel. Silence followed, then a flicker. The melody returned, stronger now. More layered. It sounded like rain on glass. Like laughter through tears. Like forgiveness. The pulse was answering. Lisa's voice returned, but this time, it trembled. What have you done? Jungkook looked at the others and then, to the pulse, he whispered, play it for them. The walls vibrated with the sound. The pulse was singing not as a machine, but as a child finally finding words. And outside, across cities, across borders, across belief systems and security walls, people stopped. Listened. Remembered, and for the first time in decades, they felt. All at once, not because they were told but because someone had loved and no one had taken a picture. We lost soul. The words landed like thunder in the heart of the bunker, sucking the air out of the room. Taehyung's voice was flat, not from lack of emotion, but from the kind that runs so deep it turns to stone. Jimin looked up from the map strewn with pins, digital overlays blinking red. What do you mean lost? Taehyung turned slowly, eyes hollow. They shut it down. Everything. Electricity, networks, public comms, even water. The city's dark. They're calling it an empathy containment zone. Jungkook was silent, but his jaw tightened as the implications spread like cracks through his mind. They're isolating feeling. Not just isolating, Sura said from behind her terminal, voice shaking. They're trying to starve it. Namjoon moved toward the console. The pulse, how's it responding? Sura glanced at the screen. It's quiet. Everyone froze. Jimin whispered, no. That's not. What does that mean? It's like it's listening, she said. Or mourning. Jungkook stepped closer. Or it's waiting for something. The room buzzed with tension. The walls of the resistance bunker, once a sacred library beneath a demolished art institute, felt suddenly too small. Screens across the room played looped footage, families hugging for the first time in years, strangers holding hands in protests, anonymous letters left in public spaces. But in between those images, newer ones flickered, videos from the regime, fabricated apologies. Rewritten history. Deepfake confessions where Jungkook thanked the authorities. Where Jimin admitted guilt. Where Taehyung's face became a weapon against them. They're trying to overwrite the truth with believable lies, Namjoon said. It's what they've always done. Until now, Sura added. The pulse is still carrying fragments of the original hug. It's stitched into millions of emotional threads now. It's not just a file anymore. It's part of people. But it's not enough, Jungkook muttered. Not yet. Jimin turned toward him. Then what do we do? There was a pause, then Jungkook's eyes met his and he said, we go live. Taehyung's voice was sharp. That's suicide. Jungkook's gaze didn't waver. Not if it's the truth. Not if we do it together. They'll trace the broadcast in seconds, Sura warned. They'll send in drones, erasers, neural silencers, then we speak before they can stop us, Jungkook interrupted. We don't run this time. We stand. Jimin stepped forward. I'll do it with you. Taehyung hesitated. Then gave a slow, reluctant nod. 3 voices. 1 memory. Namjoon turned to Sura. Can you secure the transmission? She stared at the console, then back at them. You understand what this means, right? This isn't just an interview. This will be emotional warfare. The world will either remember the real you, or never forgive you. Jungkook breathed in. Let them remember. Sura worked fast, her fingers dancing over the controls. There's an open satellite node bouncing between orphaned museum networks. If we launch from there, it can't be intercepted before the signal reaches global civilian feeds. A countdown appeared on the screen, 00:02:00. Jungkook turned to Jimin. His voice was quiet now. You sure? Jimin reached out, took his hand, not dramatically, just real. I was scared of being seen before, he said. But now, I want them to see everything. Taehyung looked between them. Then don't just tell them who you are. Show them why it matters. The lights dimmed, the feed began. A blank screen at first, then 3 faces unfiltered. Exhausted. Human Jungkook started. My name is Jungkook. You used to know me as someone curated, choreographed, commodified. But this is not performance. This is memory. And it matters. Jimin's voice followed, soft but steady. You've seen the hug. Or heard of it. Maybe you felt something without knowing why. I want you to know it was real. I want you to know it wasn't scripted. Taehyung leaned forward. They told us emotion was weakness. That connection was a liability. They taught us to look perfect and stay silent. But something broke through. Not because we planned it. But because for once, we didn't. Jungkook glanced at Jimin and then said, I loved him. I still do. Jimin smiled, just barely, as tears welled in his eyes. And I love him. They tried to erase it, Taehyung said. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was free. Jungkook continued. This is not a rebellion. This is a reminder that you are not machines. That your feelings aren't flaws. That your memories belong to you. Jimin's voice cracked. And if loving each other makes us dangerous, then let us be dangerous. The screen shimmered, the pulse was responding, music, full, orchestral, ancient, began to rise behind their words. Not composed. Felt. The song the pulse had been building finally surged into life. Voices, instruments, memories woven into melody. It wasn't just sound, it was resonance, Sura gasped. It's broadcasting on its own. All channels. All languages. Outside, people stopped mid-stride. Screens across cities shimmered. Public billboards flickered from ads to tears. Even soldiers paused, hands trembling on their weapons, then the drones came silent. Black fast, keep going, Jungkook said. Sura's eyes went wide. They're here. Keep it rolling. Footsteps. Explosions in the distance, but they didn't run, not this time. Jimin stepped forward. This is the truth. Taehyung nodded. We won't let you forget. Jungkook whispered, we were never just idols. We were mirrors. And the feed cut to white. No screams, no violence, just stillness. And a final note in the Pulse's song, one long, aching chord that sounded like goodbye, and hope, and maybe, forgiveness, then darkness. And across the world, a question began to bloom in hearts, unspoken but undeniable. What if the real revolution isn't in fighting? What if it's in feeling? No one took a photo, but no one ever forgot. The world held its breath after the broadcast vanished into white, after the last note of the Pulse's song faded into the quiet. Nothing happened for 7 full seconds, not a single drone moved. Not a single siren wailed. Not a single bullet flew, and then every screen across every country blinked black. Not by force, but by choice. The Pulse shut itself down, not as surrendered essay statement. IT had finished its song in its final echo, it left behind a single message, simple, untitled, written in all languages at once. You do not need permission to feel. Governments scrambled, issuing denials, corrections, doctored footage. But the people didn't listen. They couldn't. Something inside them had already shifted. The lie no longer fit across cities. People gathered not to riot, but to remember. They didn't chant. They didn't fight. They hugged strangers, lovers, enemies. They held one another not as symbols, But as reminders, there were no banners. No hashtags. No leaders, just humans feeling. And somewhere in the ruins of a signal tower just outside Busan, among broken wires and scattered song remnants, rescue workers found 3 devices still warm, no bodies, just warmth. And the faint scent of rain on concrete. In the years that followed, the regime tried to rebuild the old order. But it never quite stuck. Empathy had become ungovernable. The pulse never returned, not in its old form, but in every song, every poem, every quiet act of defiance, its heartbeat could still be felt. Museums refused to archive the hug. Not because it wasn't important, but because they knew some truths were too alive to be framed. Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung were never seen again, but they were felt. Laughter that trembled after grief. The way hands reached for one another without asking. Silence that no longer felt empty because the world didn't need a photograph. It had memory. It had music. It had love, and for once, that was enough.